Thanks for joining us. This is The Economy with me, Ibrahim Sani. I'm on location at Sunway University. We want to talk to some academics here to talk about some of the views of Belanjawan 2025 and also to look at the preparatory notes and the preparatory plans for the 13th Malaysia Plan that is going to be implemented in 2026. So there's a lot of RMK13 work that is currently being doing now. But before we jump into that, I want to introduce my guest for the show. On site with me right now at Sunway University is Professor Yeah Kim Leng, the Professor and Director of the Jeffrey Chia Institute. How are you, Prof?
Thank you, I'm good.
I want to ask you and be honest about this. Did you watch the whole budget speech or did you just read the excerpts?
I actually watched almost the entire segment except for the last few minutes.
So what are your initial thoughts on the budget? Did you find it a prudent budget or did you find it more of a political notion budget? What was your initial thought of it?
I think it is both prudent and then importantly also in line with our expectations, largely because this is the third MADANI budget. So we have to look at the previous long-term plan, the medium-term plan, particularly the RMK midterm review of the RMK 12. And then going forward, what is in store for RMK 13.
Yeah.
And the important aspect that I see here is that it continues to emphasize that need to raise the ceiling. That means accelerating growth and structural transformation. And besides raising the ceiling, we also must not forget the floor. We have to lift the floor. So it is basically the layman's term for growth with equity. And we do see a lot of measures broadly in line with trying to raise the ceiling. That means expanding growth, and then importantly, ensuring that the prosperity is distributed across all segments of the population. So it's raising the floor to ensure that it's inclusive and also benefits everybody.
You touched on the two pillars that the budget is very much based on: raising the ceiling, raising the floor, and of course the third pillar is on improving governance and administration. One of the big conversations that we saw post-budget announcement is on implementing some of the things that has been announced, such as the petrol subsidy, for instance. There's a lot of debate, at least in my WhatsApp group, what constitutes T15, and there's some graphs that is being shared in the WhatsApp group. I don't know how true it is. Say for instance in KL or Putrajaya, you need to earn maybe 16,000 household, then you are T15, but somewhere else only 7,000 already qualifies you as T15. I think it's not just about what qualifies you to be T15 or not. We want to know what are the thinking that you have in classifying our wealth, classifying our population based on wealth. B40, M40, T20 seems to be unusable moving forward. What are your thinking in terms of this?
We all know that classified by income groups is not perfect, largely because sometimes the income doesn't reflect the wealth owned by the individual. So importantly, given that the income classification needs to be further refined, and if it is based on household, it's subject to a lot of variables. For example, the size of the family, the type of assets, type of the location you are, all these are variables that will constitute what we consider the rich household. So defining the rich and the super rich, how we can exclude the rich from receiving the kind of subsidies. That's a challenge facing the government.
Yeah.
So I think the good thing here is that the definition has now been broadened, not just based on income level, but also taking into consideration the size of the family, the net disposable income, and then importantly also perhaps the location. But I think the important economic concept here is means testing. You have to go through a very rigorous means testing, including interviewing the person, going to the house to check what are the items, what are the assets that they have, and then ensuring that all the wealth is taken into consideration in determining whether you qualify or not for the various types of subsidies.
But we're already doing that for census.
Yeah.
Are you suggesting means testing household based but sampling? Because I don't know whether we can do this population wide.
Yes, it can be done. Largely because we already have what you call the household income survey. Now we just add in and perhaps also define what constitutes to be what you call rich household, and then tagging them based on their income level, and then of course the other information that goes into defining whether they qualify or not for the subsidies. Importantly, subsidies has to be based on prevailing economic and financial conditions. Because a rich household, because of certain emergencies, they could actually lose all their wealth or lose their income and become a B40 or even hardcore poor if they are financially distressed. So all these factors will have to be taken in consideration in deciding whether they are eligible for the subsidies. So I think it's a very, very nuanced but importantly targeted so that no one is left behind, but at the same time, those who do not deserve the subsidies can give their subsidies away, for those deserving households. So the concept is equitable distribution, a fair, if it's implemented fairly, I think all Malaysians will accept the approach.
I don't think anybody would disagree with means testing and trying to understand better in terms of what qualifies a person to be so-called quote-unquote rich or not rich. But I think the issue here is on whether or not people feel that they are equitably treated.
Yes.
Especially when somebody who earns, let's say, 20,000 ringgit in KL, that may seem a lot. But when you think about rising cost of living, household debt, single income earner of the household, codependencies, upwards as well, parents, even grandparents, children, grandchildren, all this other stuff. I don't think you can please anybody and everyone. How do you ensure that the process is transparent enough? Do you think the government is doing that?
As we have seen in the PADUs, it is gathering as much information as possible. Of course, some are confidential, some are not. I think what's important here is that we have to be very comprehensive in terms of getting all the relevant information that goes into the definition and measuring that classification. So the measure has to be defined clearly, and then importantly, data are available. And then of course, at the last stage, the last resort, there should be an appeal process, and that appeal process will help to ensure that those that are left out are able to so-called appeal to get the subsidies back. So I think the key question, the key challenge here is to ensure that what you call exclusion error is minimized, and then the inclusion error is also minimized in the sense that those who are included, they are the deserving ones.
We've heard the Minister of Economy talking about exclusion error and inclusion error and inclusivity or exclusivity risk. It's not just about once we got the plan up, then we can better target subsidies, not just for petrol subsidies, any subsidies for that matter. Do you feel that it is currently progressing well in your view? Or do you feel that from the process of execution we're still lacking in some way?
It is a gradual process of building up your database and also importantly updating and cleaning it. So that process will be always ongoing because people move in and out of the different income groups, you see. So that's an important process that has to be institutionalized. And that is what the government is trying to do, and they are facing, of course, the kind of so-called missing some of the deadlines, but that's not important. I think what's important here is to have a very comprehensive and also up-to-date database that actually reflect and capture the realities on the ground, and then importantly, minimize the exclusion and inclusion errors.
So this is the third budget, and I think I was reading The Edge saying that this already is a no mean feat because Tun Mahathir did not survive his third budget, Ismail Sabri, Muhyiddin did not survive their third budget, and now PMX has. Do you see this importance of policy continuation as critical in order for us to achieve something meaningful in the medium and I guess long term? Or do you feel that that political expediency is needed, and it's okay for the country to keep on switching over policies from now and then?
I think what's important here is that the budget is actually based on a medium-term framework, especially on the MADANI Economic Framework that ensures that prosperity, not just that we try to achieve our high-income nation status within the planned period, which is likely within over the next few years.
Yeah, 27 according to the World Bank.
So it's very
27,
likely that we will already be in that category. And then what's important now to ensure that the income distribution is equitable. So that's why inclusivity is very important in analyzing the budget. A couple of budgets before, and then of course the 2025 budget. There are a lot of what you call strategies and measures taken to ensure that the floor is actually lifted, and then importantly empowering the citizens, not just to receive subsidies but also to feel proud that they can graduate out of the subsidy trap.
Yeah.
So I think that's a very important change we needed in terms of mindset of receiving subsidies, and then importantly to be recognized that you are graduating out of the subsidies so-called given by the government. So I think that change is slowly happening, largely because the income growth is likely to be sustained given that the Malaysian economy has been fairly resilient, and also growth has exceeded expectations for this year and then likely to continue next year. It's because of the expanding economy, or what you call the growing cake, that we are able to distribute more equally importantly, and then ensure everybody have a piece of the cake. So that inclusivity is a very key factor in terms of the MADANI Economic Framework.
Talking about the MADANI Economic Framework, it's not just about increasing wealth equitably, it is also bringing about social justice. And that's why we've heard the overtures by the Prime Minister saying that, you know, I mean, he said it in a broad sweeping statement, you know, GST won't be executed until minimum wage is 3,000. We won't do, we will broaden SST to include a lot more elements inside it. However, I'm unsure what the broadening of SST mean from this budget. But generally speaking, that is the idea that we want to move forward. This kind of thinking is commendable, but there are some limitations that has to be brought into question. Revenue is a big issue. I don't know how much we're going to get by taxing dividend above 100,000. I don't know. I also don't know how the compliance is going to hit us in the sense of global minimum tax policy being implemented globally, and then we have to do it here. E-invoicing, next year we're going to see companies earning below 100 million to be e-invoiced as well. These general ideas of how the revenue structure of the country is being developed as we speak, do you think that this also brings about risk in terms of how we manage our deficit moving forward?
In the long term, the risk in terms of a gradual process of fiscal consolidation is actually lower.
Okay.
Largely because you are sustaining your spending, and that increased spending is important to not just to sustain the domestic economy, but also importantly to ensure that the spending in the right place can build the competitive foundations for the long term.
Basically, you're saying private consumption has to grow, but in the right way.
In the right way, and then importantly spending on health, spending on education, that and also rural development. All these have to continue.
Yeah.
Of course, with a larger budget, you can do more. See? And then, of course, we have to ensure that the spending is effective and also efficient. You see? So that whatever spending, you get the 100% multiplier effect. You see? So that's very important.
And also stop the leakages of
stop the leakages and all that.
That's no joke, man.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that I think is what the current, over the past 3 years, we are seeing that effort being intensified. You see? But importantly, for growth to be sustained going forward, we need to ensure that there is investor confidence and also a continuing rise in private investment. Very important, because private investment, you expand your industrial capacity, and then importantly, move into new emerging industries that can help to sustain our growth momentum going forward, and then importantly, move to a higher value, and then higher productivity, kind of led growth, you see. So all in all, you see the spending in the right place, both in health and education, that are focused on strengthening our innovative capabilities and also to develop greater efficiency across all sectors of the economy. Those are very important because without growth, it will be much harder for government to spend and also to sustain its poverty eradication programs. And then importantly, we're lifting up the floor because uneven growth is also one of the disadvantages. Even if you have growth without equity, it is not stable and not sustainable in the long term. So over the longer term, we see that Malaysia, because of resilience due to our diversified economy, and then importantly, institutional building. We must build quality institutions, and that quality institutions will in turn result in more efficient spending, more creativity and innovative strategies and policy, not just in the government, but also importantly in the private sector to actually spearhead our economic transformation in order to sustain our place in the high-income economies among the world. So I think importantly, reaching the target of a high income is important, but importantly, it's the income convergence that is needed so that we can reach what we call the frontier economy. So that income convergence is where Malaysia will be our next focus. Once we have reached a high income status, is to ensure that the gap, we still have a fairly big gap with the other advanced economies in terms of per capita income. It's closing the gap that requires us to redouble our effort.
What I find interesting in this budget is that not only does the Prime Minister raise the minimum wage, the Human Resources Ministry or Kesuma has also outlined that specific job occupation must reach a specific minimum wage for that occupation. Is this something that we should be looking at as well?
Yes. Those are what we call indicators of how successful we are in terms of expanding our investment, in terms of generating jobs that are high wage in nature, but also importantly skills-based, so that the skills are able to meet the industry needs. And I think the critical factor is the horse pulling the cart going forward, and we are seeing that horse in the form of investments, and private investment is accelerating. So that has provided a lot of optimism, especially among market participants, including foreign investors. And that is the key driver, because this is the factor that has been missing for a long time. Sufficient level of investment that is in the range of between 20 to 25% of GDP, whereas currently we are only around 17 to 18%. So the recent surge in private investment, particularly FDI, and those FDI are in the higher tech industry, and that has provided a lot of optimism that Malaysia will be able to reach the high income status and cross over, and then of course very important to sustain the growth momentum until we can close the gap with other advanced developed nation status.
I saw an article as well that talks about some countries achieving high income status, but after a certain time, they drop back to middle income. Is that a risk that you're thinking of constantly?
Yes, there is a risk that we see in countries like Argentina that move up and down high income level, but very important, we need the social political stability. Peaceful nation, we need peace and stability in order for economic growth to take place. So it's very important to preserve the peace and stability in the country,
and
socially, and the continuity. So I think that is more or less been settled over the last 3 years, and hopefully if it continues, then we will likely see greater dividends, so-called peace dividends, from
is that an official term? Peace dividends.
Peace dividend, yes, because then you don't have to spend so much on
instability,
arms.
what do you call that? Unstable premium, peace dividend.
So we are able to reap that kind of dividends to basically crowd in investments, crowd in spending. I think that would be the so-called the basic formula for growth, whereby domestic spending is sufficient to ensure that your growth at least achieve a minimum of 3 to 4%, and then another 2 to 3% top up from investments, from especially foreign investments.
DDI as well, what do you think?
Yes, DDI is very important in order to strengthen the supply chain, and then importantly to spread the benefits among the micro and small and medium-sized enterprises. So that it will be part of inclusive growth, whereby you want to spread growth to the smaller players as well across the different lesser developed regions like East Coast and Sabah and Sarawak.
Okay, Prof, we'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll discuss a bit more in terms of the RMK13 wish list or planning. Thanks for staying on with us. I have with me Professor Yeah Kim Leng. Prof, RMK13 is well underway. A lot of the governmental bodies, agencies are also doing this, ministries as well. Where do you see RMK planning is right now? Are you happy with the progress?
I think the early start is very encouraging. I think that's important to note. And then also the reorientation of the next plan, the RMK13, towards what we call the new and emerging industries that are important for developed countries. So Malaysia would likely transition to a high income nation within the 13 Malaysia Plan. And then importantly, what we need here is to create what we call innovation-led economy. So innovation-led economy requires a lot of development of our skills, our technology, and investment in R&D. So I think those are the critical areas.
But I think education also plays an important role in this.
Correct.
And not just education, but upskilling and reskilling as well. Right. Do you feel that a lot of money has to be poured into this space, or we risk not being able to move up that value chain as you speak of just now?
Yeah, I think in terms of education, of course, the next year there are also the end of the previous education master plan.
Yes,
so the new one will also be coming out. Yeah. I think one important focus here is that there needs to be a shift towards quality education. So the focus should be not just producing graduates to meet the requirement, but in terms of producing the right graduates. And then the other important aspect is to see how we can mainstream technical and vocational education and training, so TVET. That's very important in order to ensure that graduates are not underemployed. We do have graduate unemployment issue, which continues to hover above 10% in terms of their unemployment. So importantly, to ensure that the lesser skilled graduates are able to migrate towards what they call the technical areas, technical skills areas where it's much needed by the industry. And they are much more focused, and then importantly, they are also equally high-paying jobs available in that spectrum of occupations. Of course, the higher end, the critical occupationalist jobs, they are met by all the top graduates from public and private universities. So that has to continue. We have to continue supporting the upgrading of our universities to produce better quality graduates to meet, especially in the area of STEM, science, technology, engineering and mathematics graduates. That has to continue with a greater focus on the emerging industries, especially in data analytics, artificial intelligence, robotics, and all those so-called industrial 4.0 kind of industries. And that's a very important drive that we need to maintain our pace of investment in those areas.
Final comment, Prof, on budget 2025 as well as RMK13?
I think Malaysia has, in a way, proved to be fairly resilient. I think we have seen growth this year exceeding expectation, and that has allowed the government to actually continue to have expansionary budget, because without a growing economy, at the current level of spending with the minimum reduction in subsidy, you will face the kind of fiscal challenges in terms of revenue income gap. So what has happened here is the budget has struck a balance in terms of what you need to spend and how much revenue you can get from just tinkering with the SST, and then of course including some of the newer taxes that perhaps will inflict some small pain on some of the businesses, but it's not overly excessive to derail the growth momentum or derail the success of these companies. So I think everyone has to contribute in terms of raising our productivity, and then importantly is to see how we can spread the benefits all across all spectrum of the society. I think that's important in terms of lifting the floor, given that the ceiling now is moving up.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Prof. That was Professor Yeah Kim Leng, the director of the JCI, or Jeffrey Chia Institute on Southeast Asia. You can learn more about Prof. Sia's work on the Jeffrey Chia website as well as Sunway University website. You can find out more about this show on astroawani.com. My name is Ibrahim Sani, signing off on location from Sunway University.